In a world where trombone players and musicians want to know the answers to burning questions, top trombone players, even me, are here with Paul the Trombonist Nowell to answer your burning questions.
You had mentioned your about the approach to funk and R&B and how that's a little different approach. I'm really interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, like I said, I grew up kind of self-taught and interested in the songs that I was hearing on the radio as a kid. Mm-hmm. With the James Brown and those guys and everything. Of course, I told you earlier, Fred Wesley was my guy. That was my guy. And when I got older, in my 20s and stuff, I got a chance to meet him. And we did a lot of work together, and it's just that style that he brought to commercial playing trombone that had never been done before, And I don't know if it's something that you, if you develop it, or is it just from like going to the parties and hanging out and all that stuff and hearing that kind of music. He was influential in James Brown. Then he did all the horn stuff for Parliament Funkadelic. So it was Bootsy Collins, all that type of thing. And that's the stuff I grew up on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So while a lot of cats were studying JJ and all those guys, which I also, studied, but my first thing was Fred and cats like that were playing that style of music. So, and it was really about if you played and somebody wasn't bobbing their head, you know what I mean? If you wasn't grooving, it wasn't happening. So when I got older, I started taking lessons from a cat named, I don't know if you ever met Thurman Green. I think he passed before.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a great player, and I went to go over his house, and we were playing off some Abersaw stuff, and it was like a B-flat blues we were playing, and I wanted to be impressive, so I'm starting to rattle off all this stuff, and Thurman was a very quiet, solemn guy, and he played the chorus of the blues, and then he looked at me and said, that's nice. He says, I want you to do it again. And he says, but this time I don't want you to use 3 notes for the whole solo. And of course I fell on my face and he was saying, I think this is what Fred and some of the R&B guys know, is that he says, before there was harmony, before there was theory, the first instrument was the drum, and it was rhythmic. So if you can't make your solo work rhythmically, you can play a bunch of notes and stuff, but if you can't say something very simple rhythmically, then that's where he made me start back from.
I see.
And I still struggle with that. You know what I mean? Like just one chord guy, I can play a million chords on one chord. And after you play your scales and all that, all your licks, it's like, okay, but what do you have to say? So that was like, but like I was telling you before, you've had so many great players on this thing. I don't really feel my expertise would be in talking to cats about techniques or how to play and stuff. I mainly want to talk to you about the business end of, like, you know, what do you, as a young trombone player, how do you get tapped into the business? How do you work?
Yeah.
How do you, you know, get gigs and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I never felt, when I was young and coming up, there were so many great players. I never felt like I was one of the greatest players in LA, but I felt like I had something to offer. So what I would strongly recommend, something that I commend you for, is finding a market, you know, that you do what you do, your thing, whatever I mean, you have to, this is LA, you have to read, you have to do the techniques, you have to do the drills, you have to do everything that makes you competitive in this town. But to work, I think what you need to do is find something John Clayton told me. He says, you know, you're going to have to center in to what it is that you feel you do. What is this a special thing that you bring to the table? He said it's going to be difficult because you're going to get called to do this, you're going to need the money to do that and all that stuff. But when you focus in on what you do and what you bring to the table, and you try to be the very best at that, he said, now all of a sudden you're getting called because you're Paul, the trombonist, which is a whole different negotiation skill than when you're just being called to play, oh, I need a third trombone player in a big band. You know what I mean? So for me, it was commercial music, and it was writing and arranging, you know. As I was telling you before, I grew up in an era where, you know, in the 70s, where, you know, everybody was trying, like now, everybody's trying to be a producer, but they couldn't afford the really good players. So, you know, you had to sound like Fred Wesley, you had to sound like Rosalino, you had to sound like, you know, JJ. You had to be able to imitate them in order to get a call. And the more cats you could imitate, the better it is. Well, once those sessions started dying out, like maybe, you know, once the technology came in, you had synthesizers and all that stuff, then you were left with all these things that you could do, but no one wanted them. For instance, like when the synthesizers came in, I remember a big thing from the horn players, when synthesizers came in, it was like, oh man, those don't sound like real horns. They don't sound like real horns. But here was the thing, they weren't trying to sound like real horns. And all of a sudden, real horns started sounding dated. And when Prince and Morris Day and those cats came in, that was the horn sound, that synth sound. And so if you came in with a horn section, you just
interesting.
Yeah, you sounded dated. You were like, yeah, you didn't, you know. So it replaced the horn sound. Wow. That particular type of sound had replaced the horn sound. So I saw a lot of cats fall by the wayside because they didn't adapt. They didn't change, or they didn't figure out what they could bring to the table that most people wanted. And so that got me to really thinking, and I said, well, I know I write pretty well, so I would write tunes, and then I would call the cats that were much better than me. I'd get a little gig for the door or something, and then they would play my music, and so it would get around. And then also tapped into singers, because you know the whole thing with the singers and musician thing, you know what I mean? Like, but a lot of times I feel, Paul, like what musicians do, we get so much into what we do, we isolate, and we don't look at what other people's talent might be. So someone might be able to sing crazy, like really well, but we will kind of scoff at them because they don't read music.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's valuable there? You got talent, you got somebody wants to see, somebody wants to hear, and you have musicians, and there's a bridge that needs to be gapped. So then when I see that, and with all the people that I had worked with, I was starting watching musical directors. and so how they were the voice for the artist to communicate with the band. And that was a source of employment. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like for instance, I used to work with Diana Ross, and then there was a guy that was a famous Motown musical director named Gil Askey. And Diana Ross was an extremely talented person, but she didn't know anything about music. So in order to make her, well, she didn't know anything about the theory of music or anything. So she needed a band, she needed, you know, charts, she needed, you know, and she didn't want to have to deal with people that were, and I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes musicians can get very kind of, that. So she hired the musical director, and the music director would be the liaison between her and the musicians. She could get her ideas out to him, he could orchestrate it to them, and he became a very valuable part of the puzzle.
I never thought of it that way. That's really cool.
Same thing when I was working with, I mean, Marvin Gaye knew some music, but still, I mean, when you come to orchestrating and being able to write for all the instruments and stuff, so that guy becomes very important. He becomes more important than almost anybody else in the band.
Right.
So these are the things I'm saying, you know, in terms of like recognizing a skill set, finding a skill set. I'll take for you, for instance. You know, you're in a city of great trombone players. I mean, everybody can play, you know? And you've created this market, you know what I'm saying, that only, you know, you could do. You originated a market, and I have so much respect for that, because that's what I think it's going to take for people to continue to succeed in this business, because you just can't be the best at everything. You just can't. So you need to find a market. You need to find out why should I hire Duane Benjamin? Why should I hire ben-jamin when I can hire this guy who plays trombone or that guy who plays trombone? Well, then I say, well, I can provide you with a book of tunes. I can provide you, all we have to do is get singers, and I have a working band. I have a working book that you can use. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or I'm a trombone guy that specializes in Jimi Hendrix tunes. You know what I mean? You know,
you just find something.
Yeah, you have to find whatever it is that I mean, if your thing is like you're the best reader in town, that's great too. Whatever it is that you do that separates you from the other guy, you know, as opposed to just sitting around. I hear musicians all the time, man, there's no work. Go create it. Make a market. You know, I worked for a company called West Coast Music for 10 years, where I was like the music supervisor. They were special. I don't know if you know that company.
Yeah, I worked with them.
Okay, so when they first started, they were just guys that thrown together, you know, Mustang Sally and C, you know that. So me and Darrell Coleman, who was a Starter singer, we started doing arrangements. You know, like, and then hiring singers to know the arrangements. Well, all of a sudden now, it's a show band. You know, guys doing choreography and knowing the arrangements, you know, knowing the parts. It wasn't just a bunch of people that, you know, Mustang Sally or, you know, dancing in the streets and everybody would have a different interpretation of it and all that. Well, since then, now West Coast has about, 8 or 9,
a lot of
you
bands,
know, but they're units. They're not just guys thrown together, and it upped their price range.
I see.
It upped our price range. You know, it upped so the guy that ran the place, Jim Eppolito, he hired me to put me in the office, had me develop groups and write charts and all that stuff. So that was a whole new era, and that's what I'm talking about: finding a way to make yourself, as opposed to being upset because, oh man, I didn't get any, you know, calls from West Coast Music to go play that. Make yourself valuable.
If you made it to the end of this video, you're extra special viewer. Real exciting announcements. First, I want to just thank you so much, Duane Benjamin. That gentleman is just a wealth of knowledge, and I highly recommend, if you're like interested in arrangements and to check out his music, just go to his website, DuaneBenjamin.com. I'm going to put a link down below as well. He'll be back for more episodes of Bone Masters. I'm really excited to share with you something that just got rolled out. I'm so excited to share with you this. So if you made it to the end of this, you're in for a treat. So many of you have been doing these Skype lessons with me online, and it's, got a little confusing with the back and forth and trying to figure out how to schedule. Well, we made it simple for you all. And I'm going to give every single person's first lesson 25% off with a special promo code, Music for You. So it's so simple because now it's all synced up to my calendar, the availability of when the slots are. So it's all very automated, very efficient, very clear. So what you do is you just go here, check it out. I'm going to show you. What's going on? Does it let me flip it over? I want to flip the camera over. It's not. Okay, so just go to paulthetrombonist.com. See, I hate it how it's backwards like that. I don't want it to be backwards. Okay, paulthetrombonist.com. And then you just go to the lessons tab. Then you go to online lessons. Then your redeem coupon, you're going to type in Music for You. Okay? For You. You click it. Apply. Now you got your discounted lesson. Then look. You see the times? You click what time you want. And you can pick any time, and then it has everything you need. And it's so awesome and so amazing. So that's just paulthetrombonist.com, and you click the lessons tab. It's amazing. I can't even believe I'm so excited about it. I already got a couple people that signed up with this service, and it just got rolled out yesterday. So now it's just like automatically in my calendar, automatically in your calendar, and no back and forth, and it's super fun. And I'm excited to connect with you all on the online lessons, or if you're in the Los Angeles area, you can just come to my studio as well. So that's also an option on the website. Thanks for tuning in to the channels. You're the best people. If you find some value in the content here, you can always click like. It helps with the algorithm. We figured that out. Also, commenting helps with the algorithm. It helps push these videos out. YouTube helps promote them. And there's really all there is to it. If you haven't heard my album, Journey to the World, you can get that on the site as well. Thanks so much. Paul the Trombonist signing off.